Giving women the same rights as men when it comes to high school and collegiate athletics is the subject of a resurgence in the controversy over Title IX.
Dr. Janice Johnson-Diaz is president of Grassroots and here now to discuss the 40th anniversary of Title IX. Let's talk about the intent of Title IX.
The intent of Title IX is actually kind of an interesting legislation. It was Patsy Mink actually created the language, and sports was never a part of it. It was about simply affording women the same accommodations as men. And it was a small piece of legislation where no one paid attention. But the outcome of this legislation would be transformative for women, especially for poor women and girls.
And at what point did that change?
So in 1972 is when the legislation was passed, and it has been contested over the years at several different points. But the intent was simply to afford women the same rights. But when it changed was when women decided to use it in the Education Act in order to be able to get the same support and services as men and boys had gotten. And that would be some years later after the 1972 legislation. But in 1979 it was contested, in 1981, straight up until 2001, we begin to see lawsuits where there was an expansion and what people felt like in some cases a retraction.
Well, you saw schools that had major budgets for the boys' football teams and basketball teams, and now when women are moving into sports, you're seeing these colleges have to respond accordingly, and I guess this is where now you see a greater application of the Title IX.
Yes, so the application of Title IX is that wherever there's federal funding, there must be equal accommodation for women and girls. And that accommodation extends not only to the locker room, but also to the budgets, to the uniforms, etc. And while there's been lots of effort made to see that that occurs, that's not always been the case. In fact, one of my colleagues is in great turmoil with the New York City schools because Title IX is not upheld in some schools. So girls' locker rooms are in disrepair, their uniforms are of a lower quality, the amount of information that's made accessible to them just does not occur.
Well, who's in charge of enforcement?
Well, in some cases there's supposed to be a Title IX officer in every school district, right, especially if there's federal funds. But it's not always clear who that Title IX officer is. It's not posted on the websites, it's not made known, and therefore it's sometimes ambiguous. And that is a part of the challenge that continues with women's and girls' sports.
There's another flip side that some schools have said, well, rather than expend all this money on women's sports, we'll just detract what we're putting into men's sports.
Yes, and it is there that we really see the contestation takes place, right? It is, I am simply not invested and I'm not willing to make the effort necessary in order to support women and girls' health. And this is a tragedy, especially for impoverished women and girls, because in so many things have happened federally. We see that there is a reduction in terms of physical education. We know that schools exist in places where women and girls cannot play outside. And therefore, having sports is a crucial part of what can be done to improve women and girls' health and well-being.
As we introduced you as president of Grassroots. Let's take a step back and explain what that organization is about and how this ties in.
So this is my favorite thing on the planet. So I am, it's Grassroots Community Foundation. My partner is Black Thought. You might know him and see him every night on Jimmy Fallon. He is the lead singer for The Roots. And we have been very, very old friends. And 6 years ago, he gave birth, he and his wife, Michelle Trotter, to a little girl. And that changed our world. I happened to give birth to a child 7 years ago. And Grassroots is a health advocacy organization, and our work is really dedicated to improving the health and well-being of women and girls. And this is crucially important because in the era where so many of Black and brown men are incarcerated, the people who live in poor communities and urban spaces are women and girls. And we need to see that they are maintained because they're the guardians of the family. And so Grassroots, we have a 10-city initiative all across the U.S., the 10 cities where women and girls have the worst health outcomes. And we go to those cities, and through concerts and working together with policymakers, we provide funding for educational and recreational programs.
So there's a natural tie-in with what you're doing and using the Title IX to say, you know, not only are we talking about academics and sports, but health.
Yes, and you have to. So many people are mistakenly thinking that health is separate from education. but there are crucial things that show that when girls play sports, they have higher educational achievement. It also delays sexual initiation. So girls who participate in sports are less likely to be teenage mothers. They're more likely to be affluent. It's an opportunity, especially for poor girls, to become educational, to get their education that they need. Many of our girls would not have this opportunity. Right now we have a strategic partnership with the New York Liberty, the women's basketball team, and that partnership really is, it's a natural part of our mission, because all of the players on the New York Liberty team are beneficiaries of Title IX. They're college-educated women who now are able to not only be healthy, but they have economic liberation that's necessary.
Sure.
And so Title IX is essential if we're thinking about women and girls' health, and essential if we're thinking about economic inequality.
And just being a part of a team really helps you not only excel in the field, but in whatever career you choose. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this.
My
and for all of your
pleasure.
work that you do.
Well, I hope that people will come out. We're having a fundraiser at Madison Square Garden on
great.
Thursday in support of this effort of sports and women and girls' health.
Is there a website you can go to
Yes.
for that information real quick?
Yes, you can go to powerforward.eventbrite.com.
All right.
Right? Or to our website,
I have to tell
Grassroots
you.
Community Foundation.
Grassroots
I
Community
have three
Foundation.
daughters, so I am intimately familiar with some of the issues you're talking about, and I wish you great success, and perhaps you can attract the attention of female legislators who can then help you push that.
Yes, and I hope to see you both on Thursday.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
No problem.